Boom, we are
And
live.
we're live. There it
Woo.
is.
It is fun time. Fire time.
Fire time. All right. All you business pros out there. Before we jump into the show, just a quick reminder to please subscribe on whichever platform it is that you're listening to us on. Give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe, and drop a review and help other like-minded business owners find value from our guests, that side. As we rise up in those podcast rankings, we will really appreciate it. And if you want to be a guest on the show, we'd love to have you on and learn from you too. Go to www.businessbros.biz/podcast guest to schedule your time slot. And don't forget to follow us on all of our social media at Business Bros Pod. We are so excited and honored to bring yet another incredible guest on the Business Bros Pod. Make that two incredible guests. These gentlemen are the co-authors of the #1 best-selling book on Amazon in both business communication skills and organizational learning called Solving the People Problem, Essential Skills You Need to Lead and Succeed in Today's Workplace. If you are in the process of building a team, you will not want to miss today's episode. Our guests understand that no matter what business we are in, we are always managing our human-to-human connections. The most successful businesses are the ones that have the most effective and efficient collaboration between people, and our guests today have a ton of experience in radically improving employee engagement and team collaboration. We're so excited to have these two awesome guests on the show today. So without any further delay, let's welcome to the show these Amazon best-selling authors, Brett Cooper and Evans Kerrigan. That's great.
Shut up and sit down.
The Business Bros Podcast was created for you. Learn from the business professionals who come to share their stories. Find out what's working in business, on social media, what's hot and what's not, straight from the mouths of successful entrepreneurs out there doing the real work. And now, welcome to another episode of
Business Bros. Ladies and gents, we got 4 bros in the show. Love it, love it, love it.
Style bro, people problem bro, business bro, insurance bro. I love it.
It's all the bros.
Perfect.
All the bros. All right. I'm pumped, guys. I'm super excited. We had a little bit of conversation before the show. We got so much great personality and people that we're gonna talk to. I'm just gonna start it from the top. I'm gonna let you guys tell me a little bit about what you're up to these days. Let's start off with Brett. Tell me what's going on with you, Brett.
Yeah, well, we just wrote this book, Solving the People Problem. First week, it went right up to bestseller status on Amazon. As James, you talked about there, we're thrilled about that. Right now, we got, I think we're up to 45 ratings, book reviews on Amazon, all 5 stars. We got a perfect 5-star rating. Hopefully, we can keep that going. A 10. If Amazon
5 stars here.
If Amazon could give us 10 stars, I would love that. That'd be fantastic. That'd be fantastic. Now, but this book, you know, we'll talk about the ideas in the book, but it's basically the culmination of the 20 years that Evans and I have been working together as organizational health consultants.
Well, Evans, what is the people problem? What's going on there?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people think that they have people problems in their business, and we talk about that as if the people are the problem. What we found working with all kinds of organizations around the world is actually the problem isn't really people. It's our inability to really hear one another, understand one another, and be able to react to one another in a really positive way. It's that we're not clued into one another, right? We find those differences between us, and instead of gathering the strength that we can get out of those, we tend to focus on what that limits us rather than the possibilities. And that's really where we want to get people.
We're at a perfect time in American history where the people problem tends to be very focused on, everybody else, right? Nobody ever looks in the mirror and realizes that, usually the people problem is the problem that's looking back at you in the mirror. Your ability to not understand what's going on, not be empathetic. It's just about you. What can I get? What can I prosper from right now without taking into consideration that, hey, other people are living their lives as well. They all are trying to do better for themselves as well. How do we get that thing and put it together? How is it that we can get somebody else to understand? Because I'm of the mindset that I can never change anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually talk about a model in the book called DISC EQ that we use that starts with self-awareness. And that's exactly what it is, right? It's how aware are you of your own your own traits, your own patterns, your own personality preferences, and your communication patterns. That's the first key. If you don't understand yourself, you don't understand how other people are interpreting you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you don't know how the world sees you, how the heck are you going to be able to adjust what you need to do to be more effective with the people that you want to work with?
Well, tell me about the DISC EQ. I mean, that's a personality test, right?
Actually, no. Well, there's two parts of it. So I'll give you an overview, and then Evans, I'll let you fill in here a little bit.
Sure.
Really, it's emotional intelligence model first and foremost. So emotional intelligence is all about being able to know your own emotions and be able to manage them and understand kind of the emotions of other people and be able to interact with them. So the model in our book is DISC EQ, and it has 4 elements to it. The first element, as I mentioned already, is self-awareness. The second element is the application of that self-awareness, which is, do you choose your actions wisely? The third element is, do you know other people's styles? And then the fourth element is, do you use that knowledge about yourself and other people to adapt your behavior for mutual benefit? So it's really about an emotional intelligence model, knowing yourself, knowing others, and applying that knowledge to interact more effectively. And emotional intelligence is an idea that's been around for over 20 years. It's helped a ton of organizations and teams really get a whole lot better. The gap in the history of emotional intelligence is there hasn't been really a language to say, okay, well, how do I understand myself and how do I understand other people? So what we've done, outlined in this book, we've taken DISC, which is a personality styles assessment. It's got almost 100 years of history to it. So it's a proven methodology and a proven language. And we've taken that and we've blended that with emotional intelligence to create this model of DISC EQ to help people improve their emotional intelligence and work better with each other.
Evans, what kind of style are you bringing to this DISC EQ?
So my style is, I tend to be a little bit more cautious and reflective. I tend to be a little bit slower to jump into conversation. You may have noticed Brett does not fall in that same place in the style matrix as I do.
Not at all. That guy's got tons of energy, right?
Yeah, I'm just happy. Frequently, he actually does all the introductions and everything, and then I hopefully can catch up somewhere later on. I tend to be more on the other style. I tend to be a little bit more toward being accepting and warm, as is Brett. We tend to, for new people, for new ideas, we tend to be really accepting of those, trying to prove them, trying to support those, and then waiting to see if we need to back off of that a little bit. The other side of that particular axis is that some people, they're going to challenge stuff right up front. New people, new ideas. It's kind of the prove it to me first. So if we take those two axes, it breaks out that style. So my style is technically called a C for steadiness. I think things through before I share them. Brett and I, obviously, we are different styles. He's much more up there in what I would think of kind of as a talk it through leader. Brett, I think, frequently starts conversations with me where the sentence starts without his knowing where that sentence is going to end.
Is there a problem with that? I don't see that as a problem. I don't see that as a problem at all.
Yeah. And this going back to what you had said earlier, Hernan, this is really about the fact that all I got is me as a person. And if I want to make any impact on that, I've got to change me. Mm-hmm. It's not that I've got to be really different, but I've got to be aware of those other styles, and I've got to be able to flex a little bit toward those other styles to make that work better. One of the subtitles we were talking about for this book as we were writing it was solving the people problem, and it's you, because we agree with you guys wholeheartedly. Our publisher thought that might be pushing it a little bit too far, but we agree with you entirely. All I can change is me. I don't.
He ain't lying.
Yeah, I don't get improvement by waiting for others to change. I get improvement when I change so that we can work better together. So it's really about personal responsibility. It's about gaining a better understanding of myself, my emotions. What are the things that I do well? What are the things that I probably got to work on a little bit? And then how can I use that to make sure that we're going to be more successful moving forward?
I actually have a question here. to your point, how do you use that? So one of the things, Brett, that you said was that people will have all of this information about what their personality type is,
Right.
but we don't know how to apply that in our work or in our personal relationships. So how does DISC EQ get applied in the real world?
Well, and you're hitting it right on the head, James. There's a lot of people and a lot of organizations that use tools like personality style assessments, like DISC or MBTI or Enneagram, and far too often those things turn into, hey, it's a workshop. I went to a workshop. I learned a couple of things. All right, did that, check that box. I'm going back to life as it used to be. What we really promote is, hey, you learn this stuff, but then you use it over and over and over again. So, it's fantastic to know your own style, but where this really comes to life, James, is when people that work together all do this together and they all learn about their styles and they start talking about it, right? And they embrace it. We talk a lot in this book about honoring or understanding and honoring differences in people. And that being able to honor different styles is exactly what it sounds like. It's saying, okay, I'm not getting frustrated because you're different than me. I'm actually going to honor that. I'm going to embrace that. And it's a learning process, James. It's not something that people learn overnight. It's you learn again and again and again. I'll tell you, Evans and I are continuously picking up new little nuggets around, so my style came to play there a little bit too much. I need to set that back a little bit.
Well, when you talk about that, it's funny because I've gone to a number of different trainings that have DISC personality tests, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you do learn a little bit about yourself. And you're right, the implementation gets a little bit tough. But the other side of what you're doing is the EQ side, right? So it's one thing to understand how your personality is and how you affect the room or how you affect the conversation. But the other side of that is other people are going to have opinions all the time. They're going to judge you. They're going to think something of you. They're going to think you're pushy, whatever. And then being in the space that we're in, when you put yourself publicly out there to have an opinion, there's going to be people who disagree with you, and then they're going to punch back a little bit. And sometimes it's in all caps and bolded with letters, right? And it's showing up online. Then we have to deal with that. We have to internalize that, and we can have multiple reactions to those situations. Some of them where you've seen it, I'm sure, where all of a sudden you're on a Facebook post and there's a big old long, all of a sudden you're like 300 comments. What's that about? And it's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Or somebody cuts you off on the freeway and now you're speeding over to catch up to them to cut them off. At what point do we take, that DISC personality test and apply some of those EQ strategies so that we have a productive day, so that we're not losing our shit, essentially, right? And making sure that we're productive and moving forward.
Yeah. So actually, this happens in a bunch of different ways, and it kind of comes from our style, actually. So where frequently people get kind of amped up, some of us actually amp back. We're actually more likely to remove ourselves from the conversation. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to say, how do I stay in the conversation to get the issue dealt with without all of the personal damage that we can cause when we let our emotions just run free, right? I mean, sometimes it's about creating a little bit of space to let off a little bit of steam. Sometimes it's about, heck, my team all knows if I get quiet, they're going to challenge, am I actually agreeing, or have I just pulled back from a contentious situation, right? Conflict is critical. Conflict's got to happen, because conflict around ideas is what enables us to make decisions and be able to move forward. But we've got to be able to do that in a way that lets all of us actually participate. And all too often, if we don't monitor those things, that conflict goes from being productive conflict to really destructive conflict. And emotional intelligence is about building the skills before I'm in that situation so that I don't hit that situation as frequently. And also having the emotional intelligence to be able to apologize if I got there.
Well, part of what you're talking about is that communication aspect of it, right? So, and I talk to people all the time about this. I'm like, look, the reason why you don't understand taxes, by the way, it's written in English. You just don't speak the language of taxes. You know, the reason why you're not understanding what's going on in real estate, yeah, that's in English as well. It's just you don't speak real estate. So if you don't understand some of the feelings, if you can't put a name to some of the feelings that you're feeling or some of the personality types that you have, it's really difficult to even, identify what those things are. So can you tell me about, what are some of the vocabulary terms or some of the things that people should understand when it comes to dealing with the DISC EQ?
Yeah, and that's exactly the reason that we put this together, this DISC emotional intelligence, was to create that language to help people understand, how can I better understand different people and myself with this language. So the DISC language allows us to look at 4 different primary styles. There's a D, an I, an S, and a C. D stands for dominance. These are people that focus on results and action. They're always challenging ideas and challenging different people. You have I.
I'm your huckleberry.
There you go. He's definitely a D. You got your I's. That's where I fall. Where we're all about enthusiasm and action, collaboration, working together with folks. I stands for influence. S is steadiness. That's where Evans sits. Evans is more focused on things like support and kind of keeping things stable, still very much focused on collaboration. And then the fourth category is C for conscientiousness. And conscientiousness folks, these are the folks that care about accuracy first and foremost, right? They want things to be right. They don't like a lot of change, and they're going to challenge your thinking. And what happens is once you start to understand this language, and when different people on the team start to understand, oh, I'm a D, I'm an I, you start to understand, okay, these are some of the typical kind of personality traits, communication preferences, if you will, and we can start to work within those. D's and I's, for example, are much more fast-paced. Mm-hmm. So they're the ones who are going to be more talkative in meetings, whereas S's and C's tend to be a little bit more reserved. So if we get a team that understands even that right there, we can have the I's and the D's start to self-regulate a little bit, right? And kind of catch themselves when, hey, if you've been talking the entire time and no one else has said anything, it might be time for you to kind of button it up and back up. And this is a work in progress for everybody. It's certainly a work in progress for me, right? You can tell that's kind of thing. But it also works for the other folks, because if the S's and the C's, who are more reserved and typically more quiet, if they realize that, hey, I'm not really sharing anything in this meeting, I'm being quiet because that's my natural style, they can find the energy, if you will, to say, okay, even though I'm not really a talk it through kind of guy or a talk it through kind of gal, I can step up here a little bit and say what I need to say. So it's about understanding those different traits and living within them more effectively.
So I'm very skeptical when it comes to putting people in particular boxes, right? I feel like we aren't all just one thing. So when you take a personality test like that and you get something,
ain't no thing like me except me.
Right. And that's kind of the issue, right? We all have this personality type. Like, I know that the way Evans is reserved, I know if I have a disagreement with my wife, that's how I become. I become like, I'd rather not argue this point, and I will just stop, right? And for the most part, she gets upset because I feel like she wants to argue, and I'm like, nope, I'm done, and I cut it off. And so that's a different personality type than, for example, when I'm on the show. Now I want to have more energy, and I want to make sure I'm talking to people. Or when we're sitting down and brainstorming, now I'm just spewing out things all the time because that's how we do our brainstorming session. Mm-hmm. So where can somebody go to figure out how to take a personality test, and are they stuck in the one box or the other?
Yeah, so they can take a test. They can go out to our site and actually access a personality test that is very scientifically robust, uses computer adaptive testing to kind of check on what, where you really are in terms of your most comfortable, most natural style. Because you hit on a couple of really key things that are very important around this. DISC, if you think about where you are in that, it's kind of where your natural style is, but we all have all 4 of those styles in us. There's just one where we normally come from, right? And emotional intelligence is getting better at being able to spread what our comfort zone is so that we can call on some of those other skills that we don't tend to always go. They're not our go-to skills, but they may be necessary in certain cases. So we want to be able to bring those out, right? All of us actually have all 4 styles. I can actually be pretty darn direct at times. It takes me a little bit more work to get there, right? But I need to get better at knowing when I want to do those things. The other thing I'd say, there are a whole lot of ways in which I interact with my wife that may not be my natural style, but they're learned behaviors. We've been together for 38 years. I'd like to keep that the case. So there are some learned behaviors that may not be my just natural style, right? We all learn along the way, but it's really it's gaining that appreciation for what comes from those other styles that we really want to use, and understanding that what goes behind that is actually almost a little bit of a different thought process. I'll give an example here real quickly. I'll call out Brett because he's on there and I'm talking right now. We actually hired a person to run our operations. And when we brought that person in, because Brett and I, that whole accuracy and real detail oriented, that's kind of not our go-to thing up front. Right.
Not
so we brought
default.
in somebody, that is not my default. Actually, that's one that's going to be a real stretch for me, to be honest. We brought in somebody specifically to do that. They were, in terms of the disc language, they were a hardcore C. Accuracy was all about it, right? Don't rush me. Let me get it perfect. Absolutely perfect. Because that's what we really wanted to have in there, right? And the person we hired called me a couple of weeks into the job and said, I am getting no work from Brett. He's not sending anything my way, right? So it's like, Brett, we hired her to do all this stuff. He goes, oh, but that stuff is horrible. It's really annoying work. And, I didn't want to scare her away when she first joined the company. I was like, we hired her because she likes that stuff. I know you hate it, right? But we get so trapped in our own way of looking at the world that we think that's how other people are, and they're not. They're not.
Yeah.
Right? We got to gain that appreciation.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you add your 2 cents here. You got picked on a little bit.
Yeah, I know, right. I'm used to it now. After 20 years, we've developed quite a bromance, and he picks on me quite a bit, but it's all good. But yeah, the example he was just giving is exactly right. I'm thinking, okay, that stuff's boring. This woman's brand new to the team. I want her to be excited. I want her to be engaged, and she's like, I don't want to be excited and engaged. I want to get stuff done. Right. I want to get it done right. Give me some stuff I can do and close the door and not talk to anybody. I'm like, oh, that sounds horrible, but okay, here you go. So, and that's really the cornerstone of emotional intelligence, right? It's about understanding these things. So, on the idea that you mentioned around, it can be really dangerous if you start labeling people. That's the last thing we want to do. Really, what we try to do with this is use those labels to start to make some generalizations around what are our communication styles and what are our behavioral patterns. So, for example, with me, classically as that kind of I style, well, some of those characteristics that I have, little impulsive. I fall in love with ideas and I just go. Matter of fact, we do this little exercise with clients a lot called the appreciation seat. And one time we did it with our own team. The appreciation seat goes like this. You get your team and everybody sits around a table, or these days sits around on Zoom, and you do 2 things. You do 2 rounds. The first round is you put somebody in what we call the appreciation seat, and everybody else goes around and says, hey, here's something that you do that really helps the team. It really pushes us forward. Thanks. Keep doing that. Then we go back around, because we're all about improving and getting better as a team. So we go back around and everybody has an opportunity to say, here's one thing that you do that slows down the team. And maybe you can kind of pull that back a little bit. Well, this time when we were doing the appreciation seat, one of our colleagues, this woman named Renee, comes to me. I'm on the appreciation seat and she says, all right, Brett, one of the things that you do that's so helpful for the team is you're always ideating. You're always thinking about the future, what's going to be next for us, and you're pushing us forward. And that's great. Thank you for doing that. And then some other people went around. Then we got back to Renee. And now she says, the thing that Brett, you do that really slows down the team is you're always ideating. We make a decision, we start working on something, and we're trying to get done, and you're always already off to the next thing. And for me, that was actually a moment, a eureka moment, an aha moment of emotional intelligence kind of click up, because I still that happened, what, Evans, 8 years ago, probably?
Yeah, it was quite a while.
Oh, wow.
And it still lives very large in my memory. And I catch myself when we're in team meetings, I catch myself saying, okay, you know what? Renee's telling me, stop it. And that's really what we're trying to do with this combination of DISC and EQ. So it's not about are you a D, IS, or a C? It's really around, okay, can everybody on the team understand what those tendencies are, what those behavioral patterns are, and start to watch them? And because one of the truisms is anything that's a strength, if you overuse it, it can become a weakness, right? I mean, that's true in all areas of life, and nothing can be. That's exactly the same here with emotional intelligence as well.
No, that's a great example. I mean, my dad used to say the same thing. Pride was my greatest attribute and also my detriment, right? It's the thing that held me back at the same time. Yeah. What you described there was actually pretty powerful. We sit down and we talk to our team this weekend. Actually, we were working on doing some brainstorming stuff, and we actually hinted on some of these personality types. Like, our admin Corey, he is not a salesperson. He does not want to pick up the phone and talk to anybody about anything other than whatever gets his job done. But he'll sit behind a desk and he'll research stuff and he'll pull statements. He does that really, really well. That's what he wants to do. And that's awesome. The other thing that you touched on, which was pretty powerful, and I want to know how this kind of plays into, your book as well, is you put people in that appreciation seat and you open something called vulnerability. All of a sudden, that seat is not only, thank you for telling me how awesome I am. It's also thank you for telling me how low I am or how I'm hurting. That has actually two effects that I've noticed in the teaching space. I always go at the beginning of the school year and put people in as many vulnerable situations as I can by leading and being in that vulnerable situation myself. It opens up your empathetic, tuned or waves, right? You start feeling for each other. You make a connection with each other, and it really builds on the quality of your team, because now all of a sudden, you've been through something with them, or you've expressed something. We have tears that happen sometimes, and people break down, and then everybody kind of rallies together. That community building is important, and that's part of, I'm assuming, what the EQ and the DISC personality segments and what your book is trying to portray. Am I getting that about right?
Yeah, you're definitely on the mark with that. We do a lot of work with teams as well as leaders individually. And one of those first things that we always work with on teams is trying to help them understand the power of vulnerability, as well as with individual leaders. All too often, we still run into people who think vulnerability is a weakness, when the exact opposite is true. If we're working with other people, our ability to actually be vulnerable, to say, I don't know, or to say I messed something up, deepens that relationship, builds trust, builds our ability to work better together going forward. And it's a huge aspect of this. And one of the things that's actually kind of critically important about kind of adding DISC in with this EQ thing is, in a lot of studies about EQ, people would say they were highly emotionally intelligent, but they actually had difficulty actually even identifying what emotions they were having. And bringing that language of DISC and the ability for people to more freely talk about behavioral patterns. There is no right or wrong style. There's just style. It's just we all come from a different place. But being able to actually start that discussion about that helps all of us start to become a little bit more attuned to it, a little bit more aware of it, a little bit easier for us to kind of grow in our emotional intelligence by better understanding what those emotions are. Because until I can actually identify them and understand them, it's really hard to make different decisions. So
Yeah, it's actually when you talked about the different personality types, and you think about the solopreneur who's going out there and trying to build a business, and he's been doing things his own way every day for the last I don't know how many years. Brings somebody on board and almost expects that person to be flawless and perfect in everything they do. He expects them to start at 5 a.m. and end at 9 p.m. like he does. And there's a lot of this implied stuff, even though you don't say it. It's almost you're being implicit in the way that you're acting with that person, and you never give that employee the opportunity to be themselves, to put them in the right seat. James and I talked about this a long time for years as we developed our team. We're like, look, we got great people on our team. Now let's put them in the right seats. We have them all on the bus. Okay, we all going in the same direction, but they're all not working to their strengths. So if people want to get to know you guys a little bit better, maybe get a little more information about your book and about your courses and your teamwork, do me a favor. Can you guys hop on here, and for our listening audience, make sure that you tell them how they can get a hold of you to find out more to help develop their teams and their business.
Yeah, absolutely. The book is called Solving the People Problem. It's available now on Amazon. The website, pretty easy, solvingthepeopleproblem.com. And from there, you can contact us. You can actually take a free Solving the People Problem assessment. Just look for the link that says, what's my DISC EQ? And that gives people an opportunity to take this free assessment that will give them an idea of where do they currently stand in those 4 elements around knowing your style, choosing your actions wisely, knowing other people's styles, and adapting your behavior. Those are the easiest places to go. We're also on LinkedIn. I'm on Brett M. Cooper at LinkedIn, and Evans is at Evans Kerrigan at LinkedIn.com.
Evans with an S, ladies and gentlemen. It is not misspelled. I've grown up being corrected on my own name, and for a long time I was like, I wish I had a normal name. And then all of a sudden, like later on in life, we're like, you know what? This is me. Damn it! This is who I am. Enjoy it. But it is what it is, guys. I had a lot of fun with you guys on the show. I mean, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. Brett, you got a ton of energy. Evans, you need to work on that. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. You're like James there. It's just different personality types. But, again, thank you guys for coming on the show. Ladies and gents, make sure you check them out on LinkedIn. And I'm going to put this on the screen one more time because I lost it here. There it is. Boom, LinkedIn, Brett M. Cooper and Evans Kerrigan. Check them out, solvingthepeopleproblems.com. And do me a favor, ladies and gents, you want to be on the show? We have an 8-week waiting list to be on the show, and I don't want you to wait 8 weeks. So, yeah, if you want to book 8 weeks in advance, I mean, we're looking at December. That's quite a ways. Or you can jump on our waiting list, www.businessbros.biz/last-minute. Hop on there. I'll send you a last-minute email. Sometimes you get an hour, sometimes you get a day, sometimes you get a week, but you'll be able to jump the line, and those things go quick. I get emails after that being like, it was 3 minutes and it's already gone. Sorry, you got to be quick with the trigger on that one. But make sure you guys hit us up, rate, subscribe, and follow us at Business Bros Pod. We appreciate you guys very much. All right, ladies and gents, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday afternoon. Peace.
Thanks again, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
And we're out.
Thank you for listening to the Business Bros Podcast. Are you looking to get more clients or to increase your income? Hernan, the business bro, can help you generate referrals through the power of podcasting. And James, the insurance bro with Pipeline Insurance, can help you effectively add insurance to your existing business. If you are ready to create wealth today and generational wealth for tomorrow, email businessbros@seeusfirst.com to schedule a free consultation or join the Business Bros Network, www.businessbros.biz.